In 1993, Nintendo released Super Mario All-Stars, a revamped collection of the original NES Super Mario games, now entirely in 16-bit. The effort and mileage Nintendo put into it was astounding, with a beautiful recreation of the NES visuals for a new era. For the series' 35th anniversary, Nintendo has released Super Mario 3D All-Stars, a more straightforward port collection of Mario's biggest 3D adventures, available at home and on the go with Nintendo Switch. The collection consists of Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64, Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube, and Super Mario Galaxy for the Wii. All three games in the collection look great despite their age and lack of remade visuals, mostly in part due to the great art styles and the HD resolution updates that each title receives. Super Mario 64 sees an HD update running at 720p both in handheld and in dock mode, while Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Galaxy run at 1080p in dock mode and 720p in handheld mode. Each title also gets a few updates to make it more accessible with the Nintendo Switch's controls. Outside of these changes, most of the games are exactly as you remember them, having all the glory and blemishes that came with them during their original releases.
It's me, Mario!
Super Mario 64 is the oldest of the bunch, releasing back in 1996 for the Nintendo 64. It's also the game in this collection that's aged the worst, though that's in part because of how it was laying the foundation for the 3D platformer genre. Although Mario in the Mushroom Kingdom is as charming as it's ever been, playing now in 2020 with Switch controls, platforming just feels a bit off at times. It isn't as tight as it was back in 1996, though to be fair, that was because the genre was only just getting started. Controlling Mario now feels like a bit of a gamble. I'd often feel like I was about to run off a platform or slip off an edge. Just trying to line up Mario next to a sign or a toad to speak to them could often be a challenge. The old camera controls that were mapped to the C buttons are now mapped to the second analog stick, though camera pivots are only made in segments due to this originally being designed for 4 buttons. This, along with the dated camera system, led to moments where I'd be fighting the camera to get an angle on the platform, occasionally clipping through models and walls in the process. These are all blemishes that come with porting a game as it was back in 1996, and for as frustrating as these old mechanics and game design moments can be in the modern age, the magic and wonder of this classic overshadows many of those blemishes. The exploration of Peach's castle and the imagination that went into creating this beautiful wonderland of different environments, it vastly overshadows these shoddy age controls and camera. There's no doubt that these design flaws were later fixed and remedied across future 3D Mario games, but even in the series' adolescence as a 3D platformer, there's something endearing about this vanilla take on the genre, if you will. A larger letdown with this port is the lack of any revision or revamping of the visuals with the oldest game in this collection. Though it's nice to see a sharper resolution on display here, the lack of 60 FPS, widescreen support, or anything in that nature is a bit of a letdown. I do appreciate the effort added to the UI elements though. Text has been updated to be nice and crisp, additionally reflecting the new Switch controls for the game. Likewise, other parts of the HUD have been completely redrawn, helping the new HD look scale across not only the gameplay, but the user interface as well.
Super Mario Sunshine!
Super Mario Sunshine released back in 2002 for the Nintendo GameCube. This Mario adventure starts off like any other Mario game. Mario goes to jail. Okay, maybe it's not like any other Mario game. In fact, among the 3D adventures, Sunshine is seen as the odd one of the bunch for better and for worse among many fans of the series. I personally stand on the side of history where I thought Sunshine was a good game. In many ways, it's ambitious yet safe. In terms of its ambitions, this is a Mario game with full-fledged voice acting, and as weird as it was back in 2002, I enjoyed it. Sure, not all of these performances were that great, but having these iconic characters have a voice was a welcome change on my part. Cutscenes push the story forward well beyond Bowser kidnapped Peach and now you have to save her. Instead, Mario and his friends are taking a vacation to Isle Delfino, where things quickly become a mess when a strange Mario imposter is seen making graffiti on the island. As a result, Mario is sent to do community service, cleaning up the island, but also trying to clear his name in the process. It's quite the wild adventure when it comes to narrative and iconic characters. The addition of the FLUDD accessory gave Mario the ability to hover and shoot water, making Mario a more versatile platformer in Sunshine. In addition to Mario's classic acrobatic moves, he can now shoot water to take on bosses, hover across platforms, and solve puzzles. However, mission objectives and level design feel a bit safe in comparison to Super Mario 64. Don't get me wrong, it was fun to have a new toolset, but a lot of the objectives were simple and almost felt like filler in comparison to 64. In fact, most of the challenge in platforming came from the levels that took the FLUDD away, focusing on traditional platforming over forcing the FLUDD. Controlling the FLUDD back on the GameCube was interesting because it showcased the analog triggers on the GameCube controller. Slightly pressing the trigger allowed Mario to continue to move while spraying water. Holding the button completely down kept Mario in place while being able to aim the FLUDD. That's been redone on the Switch as it doesn't feature analog buttons but rather digital buttons. Nintendo's workaround was to map onto the R button and the other ZR button. It has a learning curve, one you'll be forced to learn, as oddly enough Nintendo doesn't let you use the GameCube adapter for this game. What I do like is the support for 16:9 widescreen. That in conjunction with the HD visuals ultimately makes Sunshine's best parts shine. The environments. The widescreen support along with the HD HUD shrinks the UI elements while allowing a greater view of the surroundings. When Sunshine came to the GameCube, it ran at 4:3 and the UI elements were oversized. Suddenly the gameplay was fighting for screen real estate with the UI. That's all gone now with the Switch release, the first time this game has ever been officially available outside of the GameCube platform.
Super Mario Galaxy!
Super Mario Galaxy was released in 2007 for the Nintendo Wii and is my favorite game of this collection. While the narrative ambitions have been scaled back for this title, focusing on another Peach has been kidnapped and now you have to save her, only now on a galactic scale, Galaxy's gameplay on the other hand feels timeless. It ditches the sandbox world building that was presented in Super Mario 64 and Sunshine, and in its place is a rather linear approach. These galaxies contain a handful of levels all collectively designed around a specific gameplay element. Back in 2007, these elements focused on showcasing the Wii Remote, whether it was its motion controls, IR sensor, or any of the other technologies. With it so designed around the Wii Remote, a lot of changes had to be made for the Switch release, but it works well. The Joy-Con do a good enough job emulating the feeling of a Wii Remote, though since there's no sensor bar here, you have to press the R button on occasion to recenter your pointer. When playing in handheld mode, those controls are mapped to the touchscreen, and though it works, it feels a bit too easy. Levels that were designed around the precision clicking of the Wii Remote are incredibly easy playing on the touchscreen. Likewise, collecting star bits forces me to let go of the right side of my Switch to collect what I need with the touchscreen, breaking the pacing of gameplay. The go-to experience continues to be the docked experience that feels most like the original game, only now in full HD, and boy does it look beautiful. Ultimately, Super Mario 3D All-Stars is a rather simple but great collection of Mario's finest adventures over the last decade plus of 3D platformers. While yes, it's true that I wish this collection had a bit more effort put into it, at least on the visual side, in comparison to the likes of the Crash N. Sane Trilogy or Spyro Reignited collection, 3D All-Stars feels like a bare minimum effort of upgrading the presentation of these classics to a modern era. With that said, these are three of the most phenomenal games in the industry, two of which still hold up amazingly well, and one of which hasn't gotten re-released since it originally came out. Having access to all three of these, both at home and on the go, is a fantastic experience, one that arguably could be better if odd choices like not supporting GameCube controls, making it a limited release, or not fixing old bugs weren't present. Despite it all, I enjoyed revisiting all three of these games, and having them readily available is an easy recommendation to any Switch owner, especially to those that missed these the first time around.